Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with another quarterly recap of my eyeshadow usage. If you're new to the channel, I am tracking my eyeshadows this year and I want to reach for every single eyeshadow in my collection. So for the past couple of years, I have been sharing with you my eyeshadow usage per each quarter, and that's what I'm going to do today as well. I'm going to go through all of the palettes that I've reached for in the last quarter, as well as the stats. So the number of palettes that I've reached for, the number of eyeshadows, both in palettes as well as single and total, of course. So I'm going to share all of that information with you today. I will also let you know how many eyeshadows I have left to reach for in the last 3 months of the year, so you can get an idea if you think that is feasible or not. But before I jump into any of the stats, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So the first palette that I reached for this quarter is this one here, which is my Jackie Aina palette from Anastasia. This is what this one looks like. I have reached for a majority of the shades. I'm currently working on this one, No Pan Left Behind, and I have 2 shades I think left to reach for, which is the shade Lithration and Sponsored. Those 2 are the only ones that I have left to reach for in here. Otherwise, I have reached for every single eyeshadow in this palette in the past quarter. We also have the Aha Honey palette, which was my project level up. So I have reached for every single shadow in here, and as well as hit 2 pans. So this is another palette that I have reached for this quarter. Moving on to Natasha Nona, we have quite a few palettes from her that I have reached for. The first one is my Metropolis palette. This is another one that I have reached No Pan Left Behind on. I have it in my No Pan Left Behind project. So this is what this one looks like, and again I reached for the whole palette. We also have my gold palette, which I have also completed No Pan Left Behind on. It looks like this. So yeah, you can see right here, I reached for all of the shades. I don't know if I reached for any of the shades earlier this year, but I know for sure that I completed the No Pan Left Behind gold in the past quarter, so that is this palette. Then we have the Sunrise palette, which is another one that I had in my No Pan Left Behind project. It looks like this. I was working on this one in summer. It's a beautiful kind of summer palette. It is so rich and stunning. I really love this one. I definitely really fell in love with this one, reaching for it in that project, so that is the next palette. And then lastly, for the big palettes, we have the Natasha Nona Diva palette, which I have also completed No Pan Left Behind on, because it was in my project level up as my level 1 palette. And then lastly, for Natasha Nona, we have 2 mini palettes. We have the Mini Gold, which looks like this. Again, I have completed No Pan Left Behind on this one. And then we have the Mini Biba, which looks like this. And again, I have used all 5 shades. For Pat McGrath, we have 1 palette that I have reached for in the past quarter. Also, by the way, if you're new to these videos, there might be more palettes that I have reached for in the last quarter, but I only count the ones that I have like new uses on. So like the eyeshadows that I haven't yet reached for. So let's, for example, say that I reached for this palette. Like I have completed No Pan Left Behind on this palette. But then if I reach for it again in quarter 4, I wouldn't feature it in that video again, because I have already completed No Pan Left Behind, if that makes sense. So there's definitely more palettes than these that I have reached for. But I only really track like if I've used a shade or not. I don't really track like how many times I use each shade each quarter. So that kind of shows as well. I for sure have reached for more palettes than these, but these are the ones that I have like new uses on. So again, the Pat McGrath Bronze Seduction palette, I have also completed No Pan Left Behind, like I said. It looks like this. Then we have the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette, which is actually a palette that I'm currently having in my No Pan Left Behind. And I do have a couple shades again left to reach for. I can't remember, but I might have like 3-4 shades left in here, but I have reached for the majority of the palette in here. We also have my Gold Obsessions palette from Huda Beauty. This is my Panda palette at the moment, so if you don't want any spoilers, make sure to check out my last video, which went up 2 days ago, because that was my Panda palette update. But again, this one I have obviously reached for every single shade in, because it is my Panda palette and it looks like this. So we have a couple more palettes to go. Next up, we have the Wilderness palette from Beauty Bay. This palette looks like this. And I have reached for, I think, all of the shades apart from, again, like 2 or 3. I will for sure complete No Pan Left Behind on this one in the next coming month. So this will feature again in quarter 4. But again, I only have a couple of shades left in here. And then we also have the California Coast palette from Sydney Grace. This one was in my Deco Panning, I think, as No Pan Left Behind. It looks like this. So again, I have reached for every single shade in here. So we only have 3 palettes to go. Next up, we have the Stone Vibes palette from Urban Decay. Again, I have reached for every single shade in here. Yeah, this is a new palette for me from this year, and I really do like it. But yeah, this is the next one. And then we have two final palettes, which are both also new to me. And this is the Viseart Paris Edit palette, which looks like this. Again, I have reached for every single shade in here. It's such a beautiful palette. I really would do love this one. And the very final one is my Rowan quad, which is the 75 degrees quad. And this one looks like this. I don't know if you're keeping count, but if you have been keeping count, that is 16 palettes that I reached for in the last quarter. And in my collection in total, I have 52 palettes. So 16 out of 52 is 30.8%. So again, pretty good. I'm definitely ahead of like the schedule. Obviously, one quarter is 25%. So that's kind of the average where I'm hoping to lay each month. So 30% is really good. So next up, let's move on to like more stats. And first up, we do have my eyeshadow usage. So for the last quarter, counting only eyeshadows in palettes, I have reached for 189 new untouched eyeshadows, which is out of my 651 eyeshadows in palettes. And that gives me a total of 29% even. So again, really, really good, ahead of schedule, which I needed because I was definitely slightly behind, quite a lot behind, I think, at the halfway point of the year. So 29% is really good. Moving on to singles. In the past quarter, I have really made an effort to try to reach for more of our singles, and I'm really, really happy with what I have managed to do so far. I have reached for 126 singles in the past quarter out of my 510. Which gives me a percentage of 24.7%. So slightly under that 25%, you see 0.3, which, let me see how many eyeshadows that would be. So that is 1.53 eyeshadows. So if I reach for 2 more eyeshadows, like singles, I would have hit my goal of 25% for the last quarter, which I should have done, but at the same time, I'm not too worried about it. So that is my eyeshadows usage in singles in the past quarter. So as a grand total for the past quarter, I have reached for 315 out of my 1,161 eyeshadows, which is a percentage of 27.1. So even though I'm again slightly behind on my singles, I did overall surpass my goal of 25%, which again is really, really good because I know for a fact that I was slightly behind. So that is kind of my usage for the last quarter. Let me also cover quickly my total usage so far for the year. So up to date to the 30th of September, I have reached for 44 out of my 52 palettes, which is a percentage of 84.6. So there's still a couple palettes in my collection that I have not touched yet this year, but it's a couple that I'm saving more for autumn winter. Which is, I'm not too bothered about it. And when I do reach for palettes, I try to complete them no pan left behind. So I do have a couple palettes that I haven't gotten to yet because I've been so focused on completing no pan left behind on the other palettes. So again, 44 out of my 52 reach, which again was a percentage of 84.6. Moving on to eyeshadows in palettes. In total this year, I have reached for 538 out of my 651 eyeshadows in palettes. And that gives me a total of 82.6% of my eyeshadows in palettes reached for, which I am so happy with. I am definitely ahead of schedule. Just to give you some perspective, I would have had to be at 75% to be on track for a category. So 82.6 is really, really good for eyeshadows in palettes. Definitely going to complete that. I might actually try to focus in on my palettes next and then move on to singles at the last couple bit of the year. We'll see how I decide to do. Maybe I won't do that. But yeah, again, really, really ahead of schedule. I will talk you through what I have left to reach for at the end. But I'm really, really happy with my eyeshadows in palettes. Moving on to singles, again, I'm not doing as good with the singles, but again, I have made a really, really good effort to reach for more of them this past quarter. But so far this year, I have reached for 279 out of my 510 singles, which gives me a percentage of 54.7. So I am definitely behind. I'm like 20% behind on the singles, which would be 102 shadows. So definitely behind there. But since I have less singles, I'm sure I can catch up way quicker with these compared to palettes. So I'm happy that I'm ahead when it comes to palettes rather than like, I don't know, like overall, I think I'm not as behind as I think. But I definitely need to make more of an effort to reach for singles in the next month. But as you can see, I have reached for 24.7% out of my singles just in the past quarter. and total 54.7. So I only reached for 30% of my singles in the first 2 quarters of the year, which averages 15%. So I'm definitely doing better. So I just need to keep that up for the last quarter of the year to be able to reach my goal. So at this point in time, I have reached for, in total, my whole collection, all of the eyeshadows this year, 817 eyeshadows out of 1161 again, which gives me a total use percentage of 70.4. So again, really, really good. I am still a little bit behind, but I'm doing way better than I thought I would. If I recall correctly, I think last year I'd reached for like 70%-ish for the whole year. And I still have 1 quarter left to go, and I also have more eyeshadows in my collection this year. So I'm really, really happy with where I am at this point in time. Yeah, I'm again a little bit behind, but I'm not too worried about it. So let's go through what I have left to reach for the last quarter of the year. So I have 11 palettes that I still need to reach for, which is not too bad. That is 21.2%. When it comes to eyeshadows in palettes, again, I have reached for majority of them already. But so far, I still have 113 eyeshadows left to reach for in palettes, which is 17.4%, which I definitely think I will knock out. I'm not worried about that at all. Then when it comes to singles, this is where I have a little bit of a larger chunk, but I still have 45.3% left to reach for, which is 231 eyeshadows singles. So a little bit of higher number there, but I think that should still be feasible. I'm going to talk you through kind of like the average per month in a second. I do also currently have all of my singles organized by things I have reached for and things I haven't reached for. These are all eyeshadows that I have left to reach for. First up, we have my Cleona palette right here. I need to reach for all of these shades. I also have these shades. Obviously on top here we have Cleona. We have some Colourpop singles right here. This is JD Glow, and down here we have some random press glitters as well from Colourpop. Moving on to my like round singles, we have this palette here first, which is basically mostly Sydney Grays. But starting from the last row here, we have some like miscellaneous singles. These here are like MAC, Colourpop, yeah, I think Makeup Geek as well. I think that's what is mainly in this palette. And then the final palette is this one right here. We have some Glam Shop on top. Then we have the Pastel Roses. So Glam Shop is up the first row here. The Pastel Roses is down to here. And then going down here, we have Terra Moons all the way down to here. And then the last shadows there are also Sydney Grays. So those are all the singles that I have left to reach for this year. So in total, I still have 344 eyeshadows left to reach for this year, which is again 29.6%. So even though I am slightly behind, I do think I should be able to reach that goal. Like I said, in the last quarter, I reached for 27.1% of my collection. So I need to reach for 29.6, which is just slightly higher. That is 344 versus 315 eyeshadows, which I definitely think I should be able to do. So I did kind of map out how many eyeshadows I have to reach for each month, like out of my untouched shadows, in order to reach my goal. And I managed to calculate that I need to reach for 114.77 eyeshadows, which is basically 115 eyeshadows a month for the remainder of the year. So if I can reach for 115 untouched eyeshadows every single month for the last 3 months of the year, I will complete my goal. So that would be my mini goal. Obviously, if I can surpass that, I would be really good. But like as a mental note, I will try to reach for 115 untouched eyeshadows every month. I might try to push it a little bit more towards the beginning of the quarter, because I might want December free to reach for whatever I want. But that is where I am with my eyeshadow usage so far this year. I'm really, really excited because I think I might actually be able to hit my goal. Early in the year, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to hit my goal, but I'm definitely more optimistic now, and I do think there's a big, big chance that I will be able to reach for every single eyeshadow in my collection this year. So that, you guys, was it for this video. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you're tracking as well, how you're doing with your eyeshadows. Also, I know we still have one more update for the end of the year, but let me know if you like this concept and if it's something that you want me to bring back next year. I do have an idea that I might introduce, like kind of tracking my eyeshadows, and like it's going to be a big project. But I do have a planning to pan video coming up, I think later now in October, where I discuss what projects I'm thinking about for next year. So yeah, you can see there. But let me know if you want me to bring back this specific product next year, because I would love to do so, but only if you guys are interested, obviously. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys!